Certain individuals have opted to align themselves with questionable forces in an attempt to restore their public standing, but the second that rehabilitation comes at the expense of others, specifically me and other members of my own family, that is my breaking point. It unfolded without any grand announcement, no press releases, and no formal pronouncements reverberating through the halls of Buckingham Palace, just stillness, but not a comforting stillness, the kind that causes the skin to crawl, the kind that shouts louder than any public declaration. A single screenshot, that was all it took. One image shared by a sharp-eyed royal observer at 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning sent shockwaves across the globe. The royal family's official website had been updated, quietly, deliberately, and the modification was devastating. Where the formal, proud lettering of the titles Duke and Duchess of Sussex once stood, there were now just two simple names, Harry and Meghan. No fanfare, no rationale, no apology, just an absence. Within 17 minutes, the screenshot had been circulated 10,000 times. Within an hour, every major news organization, from London to Los Angeles, was desperately trying to confirm what no one dared to believe. Had King Charles III finally acted? Had he truly stripped his own son and daughter-in-law of their royal titles? The palace press office? Silent. Clarence House, no comment. Kensington Palace, nothing. And that silence, that deafening, calculated, strategic silence, told the entire story more powerfully than any official statement ever could. Because in the House of Windsor, silence is not a void, it is a weapon. Stay with me, because what I am about to disclose will fundamentally alter everything you thought you knew about this royal family. The hushed conversations behind palace walls, the clandestine meetings, the final straw that eventually compelled King Charles to take the most damaging action against his own son in modern royal history are about to be revealed. Are you ready? Because the narrative grows darker before it brightens. The tipping point, how we reached this stage. Let us backtrack, because to comprehend why this specific moment fractured the royal family, you must grasp the years of strain, scandal, and heartache that preceded it. Recall the fairy tale, the marriage that promised to modernize the monarchy. May 19, 2018, Windsor Castle bathed in sunlight, a biracial American actress wedding a British prince. The world rejoiced, hope blossomed. This was intended to be the crown's resurgence, evidence that the ancient institution could adapt, could embrace evolution, could reflect contemporary Britain. That vision endured for approximately 18 months. By January 2020, Harry and Meghan had already announced Megxit, their stunning decision to relinquish their roles as senior working royals. The Queen issued a statement that dripped with barely concealed disappointment. The press went wild, and the British public was divided squarely in the middle. But stepping down was only the start. What ensued was a systematic dismantling of royal privacy, one brick and one interview at a time. March 2021, the Oprah explosion. 73 million people worldwide watched as Meghan sat next to Harry in that Californian garden and detonated truth bombs that would reverberate for years. Allegations of racism within the royal institution were coupled with claims that the firm refused to offer mental health support. These revelations drew a chasm so deep between Harry and William that it may never fully close. The palace's response? That infamous statement, "Recollections may vary." 3 words, that was all they offered, and in that brevity they declared war. Harry and Meghan's 6-part Netflix documentary pulled back the curtain even further. Palace staff labeled it betrayal wrapped in production value. The couple called it truth-telling. Clips of Meghan mimicking the curtsy she performed for the Queen. Harry detailing arguments with William. Private text messages, personal photographs, private distress made public for global consumption. King Charles, newly crowned, observed from Buckingham Palace as his family's intimate moments became entertainment. Sources claim he barely slept that entire week. Then came Harry's memoir, Spare. The title itself was a deliberate affront to the institution that raised him. Inside its pages, you discover a shocking inventory. Details of physical altercations with William, drug use disclosures that had palace lawyers on edge, intimate details into Charles' relationship with Camilla, and accusations that cut to the very core of family trust. The book sold 1.4 million copies on the first day alone. It became the fastest-selling non-fiction book in history. And with every sale, every headline, every excerpt, the divide between Harry and his family widened. But here is the crucial point that most people overlook. None of these public spectacles were the breaking point for King Charles. He endured them all with that famous Windsor stoicism, that stiff upper-lip determination to weather any crisis. So what changed? What finally drove Charles from patience to action? The answer will astonish you. The secret meetings behind palace doors. Allow me to transport you behind the scenes to what was genuinely unfolding while the world watched the public drama. Starting in August 2023, King Charles began hosting private meetings at Clarence House. These were not the usual constitutional discussions with prime ministers or Commonwealth representatives. These were different, more intimate, more painful. The attendees varied, but 3 individuals were present at nearly every gathering. Prince William, the heir to the throne, whose relationship with Harry had deteriorated beyond repair. William was no longer simply enraged, he was finished. Sources close to the Prince of Wales reported he told his father repeatedly, "They cannot retain the titles while attacking everything those titles represent. It's unsustainable." Next was Queen Camilla, often underestimated. Camilla had evolved into Charles's most trusted advisor. She understood media warfare better than anyone, having endured decades of tabloid vilification herself. Her counsel was consistent. Silence is dignity. Let them yell, we persevere. At last but not least, Sir Clive Alderton, the king's private secretary, the power operating behind the throne. Alderton specialized in constitutional law and precedent. He had been meticulously researching the legal mechanisms for title revocation for months, preparing for the day Charles might actually pull the trigger. These meetings were not about whether action should be taken. They were about when and how. The deliberations, according to one anonymous source, were agonizing. Charles would sit in his preferred chair, hands clasped, listening to arguments from both sides, William advocating for immediate action, Camilla urging restraint,
and Alderton outlining the constitutional and public relations ramifications. "It's not just my son," Charles reportedly said during one meeting. "It's the future king's brother. History will judge this decision for centuries." But three specific incidents in late 2023 and early 2024 finally shifted the balance.
The first incident was the coronation aftermath. Harry attended his father's coronation in May 2023, but the visit was frigid. He was seated in the third row, did not appear on the Buckingham Palace balcony, and flew back to California within hours, completely missing the coronation concert and family gatherings. The visual impact was poor. But what truly wounded Charles was what he discovered later. Harry had been negotiating a tell-all interview with a major American network during the coronation planning. The interview never materialized, but the mere fact that Harry had even contemplated it while his father was being crowned, Charles viewed it as the ultimate betrayal. The second incident was the court victory turned weapon. In December 2023, Harry prevailed in his lawsuit against Mirror Group newspapers, establishing that phone hacking had occurred. It was a vindication of his fight for privacy. But instead of quiet satisfaction, Harry used the victory to launch renewed assaults on the British press establishment and, by extension, the monarchy's relationship with that press. He delivered speeches, wrote opinion pieces, and positioned himself as a crusader against institutional corruption. Charles viewed it differently. Harry was using the family name to conduct a personal vendetta that damaged the Crown's meticulously maintained relationships with media organizations. And then, for the third and final incident, it was the American popularity contest. By early 2024, polling revealed something that palace officials found deeply troubling. In the United States, Harry and Meghan were nearly as recognizable as King Charles himself. They had constructed a rival brand, a competing monarchy, essentially operating from California. Their foundation, their Netflix deal, their Spotify contract before its collapse, their Arkwell brand, all of it capitalizing on royal association while concurrently attacking royal institutions. They desire independence while retaining the credentials, one senior courtier told The Times. That is not how this arrangement functions. For Charles, the breaking point arrived in February 2024. Harry reportedly inquired through intermediaries about bringing Meghan and the children to the UK for an attempt at family reconciliation. Charles wanted to agree. His fatherly heart ached to see his grandchildren. But William threatened to boycott any meeting that included Meghan. The rift was complete. That's when Charles made his decision. Not in fury or hastily, but with the heavy conviction of a king who had exhausted his options. The plan: royal warfare without warfare. Here is where the narrative becomes captivating, and where King Charles demonstrated a far more strategic brilliance than anyone gave him credit for. Charles did not want a public spectacle. He had witnessed the fallout when Edward VIII abdicated, when Diana passed away, when Harry departed. Media circuses benefited no one. So he devised something different: digital diplomacy.
The plan, as it unfolded, was ingenious in its simplicity. Phase 1. The subtle adjustments. The royal family website began displaying minor, almost imperceptible alterations. Harry and Meghan's profiles were relocated further down the page. Their patronages were listed as former. Their photographs were updated to older, less prominent images. Each change was minor enough to avoid headlines, but collectively they conveyed the message, "You are being erased."
Phase 2. The Festival of Remembrance setup. The Festival of Remembrance in early November became the ideal platform for Charles's next move. This sacred event pays tribute to British military veterans and war dead. It is solemn, respected, and apolitical. Charles knew the world would be watching. He knew it would be his first major public appearance after health struggles, and he knew it was the perfect moment to demonstrate what the monarchy stands for: duty, service, sacrifice. Everything Harry and Meghan's California lifestyle was perceived not to be. The palace communications team prepared meticulously. No advance briefings about Harry, no speculation about whether he would be invited, just silence. And on the night of the festival itself, that silence became deafening. The digital execution. The night before the Festival of Remembrance, at 2:14 a.m., palace staff updated the royal family website. The modifications were implemented during the dead of night, when the fewest people would notice immediately. But royal observers are meticulous. They notice everything. By dawn, screenshots were circulating. Duke and Duchess of Sussex had been replaced throughout the site with simply Harry and Meghan. Their formal royal titles were stripped away with the click of a mouse. No press release, no explanation, just the cold digital reality of erasure. The festival, where absence spoke volumes. Allow me to take you inside the Royal Albert Hall on November 9, 2024, the evening everything became undeniable. The venue glowed like a deep crimson gem beneath London's autumn rain. 2,000 guests filled the seats: veterans, military families, dignitaries, and senior royals. The atmosphere hummed with solemn anticipation. King Charles arrived with Queen Camilla, his hand resting gently on her back. He looked tired. The cancer treatment had taken its toll, but resolved. This was his chance to remind Britain of the monarchy's enduring meaning. Prince William and Catherine followed, William in his military dress uniform, Catherine radiant in black silk with a cascade of poppies pinned to her lapel. Even young Prince George attended, seated between his parents, his young face serious as he absorbed the gravitas of the occasion. The symbolism was potent. 3 generations of the monarchy united in service, focused on honoring those who had sacrificed everything for Britain. And the empty seats, the ones reserved for Harry and Meghan, they did not exist. Not even symbolically. No place cards, no acknowledgement, nothing. To the perceptive eye, that absence was louder than any official announcement. When King Charles rose to speak, the hall fell into absolute silence. His voice, though aged and slightly weak, carried conviction. "We gather tonight to remember those who gave their lives in service to this nation. Service demands sacrifice. It demands putting duty before comfort, country before self. These are not just words from the past, they are eternal principles that must guide us forward." Then came the phrase that would reverberate for weeks. "Sometimes the greatest courage is not in battle, but in choosing duty
over noise. Duty over noise. Did you catch it? That carefully chosen phrase that could signify everything or nothing, depending on how you listened. The British press corps, seated in the gallery, understood. They typed furiously into their phones. Royal commentators watching from home understood. They began drafting opinion pieces before Charles had even returned to his seat. And in Montecito, California, where the broadcast aired at midday, Harry and Meghan heard it too. According to sources close to the couple, Meghan's reaction was immediate. She watched Charles deliver that line, then quietly closed her laptop and said to the room, "Well, that's that then." Harry said nothing. He simply walked out to the garden and stayed there for an hour, because they both grasped what the rest of the world was just beginning to realize. The door hadn't just closed, it had been locked from the inside.
Montecito's response, crisis eruption. Let us now fly across the Atlantic, because while London slept that night, satisfied, Montecito descended into chaos. The Sussex estate, that $14 million mansion in the California hills with its immaculate gardens and security gates, became ground zero for a PR emergency the likes of which their team had never confronted. By 1 p.m. California time, Harry and Meghan's phones were exploding. Text messages from friends asking if the rumors were accurate. Emails from business partners probing brand fallout. Calls from journalists demanding a statement. And Hollywood contacts suddenly turning cold. Their publicist quickly organized an emergency Zoom call. The roster, the crisis communication team, legal advisors focused on international branding, entertainment industry consultants, and even mental health professionals. The question occupying everyone's mind: what should we say? Option 1, issue a statement denying everything, claiming the website changes were technical errors. The issue here was that nobody would believe it, and it would make them appear desperate. Option 2, ignore it completely, maintain dignity through silence. The issue here was that silence would be interpreted as defeat. Their brand relies on controlling their own narrative. Option 3, go on the offensive, book a major interview, state their side, play the victim card. The issue here was that after Oprah, after Netflix, after Spare, would anyone even care anymore? Or would it just look like more noise? One advisor reportedly told Meghan, "If you respond, you give them power. If you don't respond, they have already won. There is no good move here." That's when reality struck. King Charles had perfectly cornered them. He had taken action without taking action. He had made a statement without making a statement. And any response from Harry and Meghan would only magnify the very narrative they needed to escape. Meghan, ever the strategist, made the final decision: we say nothing for now. But privately, sources claim she was furious, not just at Charles, but at the entire untenable situation. Years of painstakingly building a post-royal brand, advocacy, authenticity, independence were suddenly jeopardized by 4 missing words on a website. Harry's reaction was different, more wounded than enraged, more resigned than rebellious. A friend who visited the estate that week told People magazine, He's not railing against his father, he's grieving the relationship they might have shared. There is a distinction. The global reaction? Divided by oceans and opinions. While Harry and Meghan grappled with their response in California, the world erupted in debate. And the division was fascinating, split almost perfectly along geographical and generational lines. In Britain, approval was mixed with sympathy. British polling conducted 3 days after the Festival of Remembrance showed 64% approved of King Charles's handling and 52% believe Harry and Meghan should permanently lose their titles. However, 41% still felt sympathy for the couple, and 78% want the royal family to move on from the drama. British commentators praised Charles's restraint. The Telegraph ran a column titled "The King Who Leads Through Silence." The Times called it "constitutional elegance." But even supporters acknowledged the human cost. One columnist wrote, "Charles has preserved the monarchy's dignity, but at what price to his relationship with his son?" The American reaction skewed heavily toward Harry and Meghan. Major talk shows like The View dedicated entire episodes to the King's cruelty. Celebrities such as Oprah, Serena Williams, and Ellen DeGeneres posted supportive messages. U.S. polls found 61% siding with Harry and Meghan over Charles, and #StandWithHarryandMeghan trended on Twitter for 3 consecutive days. The cultural difference was stark. Americans saw a father punishing his son for seeking independence and speaking his truth. Britain saw a king enforcing necessary boundaries against family members who disrespected the institution. Same facts, completely opposite interpretations. The Hollywood factor, when royal becomes regular. Here is where the title situation creates a genuine crisis for Harry and Meghan that extends beyond hurt feelings. It threatens their entire business model. Let us be brutally honest about why they have been able to command such massive deals. Netflix did not pay them $100 million because Harry is a skilled documentarian or Meghan is a natural producer. They paid for the royal association, the titles, the access, the insider perspective. Spotify did not give them millions for a podcast because of their audio expertise. They paid for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex brand recognition. Their Archwell Foundation receives donations partly because of their royal credentials. Publishers advance them enormous deals because books by royals sell. Strip away the titles, and what remains? Don't misunderstand, they are still famous, still Harry and Meghan, still globally recognized. But famous is distinct from royal, and in Hollywood, that difference is measured in zeros on contracts. Within days of the website changes, industry insiders began whispering. One entertainment lawyer told Variety, "Without the titles, they are high-profile celebrities, not royalty." That significantly alters negotiating power. Another producer was more direct. They are still bankable, but they are no longer in the stratosphere. The mystique is gone. Meghan's team began quietly contacting branding experts, exploring options to pivot their image. One leaked strategy memo suggested positioning Meghan as a lifestyle guru and humanitarian independent of royal association. But here is the dilemma. That is precisely what she was attempting to transcend when she married Harry. She had been a successful actress, a blogger, an advocate. The royal title elevated her beyond that. Losing it means returning to square one, except now with significantly more baggage. The constitutional question. Could he even do this? Let us now address the core question. Did King Charles actually possess the legal authority to strip Harry and Meghan's titles? The answer is complex. Under the British Constitution, such as it is, as Britain famously lacks a single written constitution, titles granted by letters patent can technically only be removed by an Act of Parliament or by the monarch issuing new letters patent. When Harry and Meghan married, Queen Elizabeth II issued letters patent granting Meghan the title Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex and confirming Harry's style as His Royal Highness the Duke of Sussex. To formally remove those titles would necessitate Charles issuing new letters patent explicitly revoking them. That is a massive undertaking, a formal, public, legally binding action that would generate enormous headlines and potentially ugly legal challenges. But here is what Charles actually did. He didn't formally strip anything. He simply changed how they are referenced on official platforms. It is the difference between being fired and being restructured out of relevance. By removing their titles from the royal family website, from official materials, and from public references, Charles is essentially treating them as if they do not hold those titles, without the formal legal action of removing them. Brilliant or cowardly? It depends on your viewpoint. Constitutional experts are divided. Professor Robert Blackburn of King's College London told the BBC, "This is governing through convention rather than law. The king is establishing a new reality through practice, not proclamation." Others argue it is constitutionally questionable. If Harry and Meghan legally possess those titles, can they simply be ignored into non-existence? The palace's position, conveyed through unnamed sources, is essentially, we never said they don't have titles, we just choose not to use them. That's our prerogative. Legally murky? Absolutely. Effective? Devastatingly so. William's role, the brother who pushed. We need to consider Prince William's role in all of this, because understanding his position is crucial to understanding why this happened. William and Harry were once inseparable, the boys who walked behind their mother's coffin, hands barely reaching the top of the gun carriage, the princes who vowed to support each other forever, the brothers who seemed to embody the future of the monarchy. That bond is dead, completely, irrevocably. Sources close to William portray a man who felt betrayed at the deepest possible level. It was not merely the public attacks in interviews and books, it was the destruction of private trust. Harry had promised William before Megxit that he would keep family matters private. Then came Oprah. He had promised the Netflix documentary would be respectful. Then came the footage, mocking royal protocols. He had promised Spare would focus on his own story, not family accusations. Then came detailed accounts of physical altercations and private conversations. Each broken promise hardened William's heart a little more. By 2024, sources claim William's position to his father was clear. He can return when he apologizes, privately and publicly. Until then, he's out. And that includes the titles. William reportedly told Charles, every time they use those titles, it gives them credibility to attack us. It's like handing your enemy your own sword. Catherine, Princess of Wales, shared her husband's perspective. After the Netflix documentary's release, she reportedly told a friend, "I will never trust them again, ever." This was not just William being stubborn. This was the future king making a strategic calculation.
The monarchy could not progress while carrying the burden of Harry and Meghan's continued royal association. And Charles, who had spent his entire life waiting to be king, could not disregard his heir's counsel. One palace insider described a crucial meeting in September 2024. William laid out his position. If Harry keeps the titles, he's essentially Charles's problem. When William becomes king, he will deal with it his way, and it might be messier. Better for Charles to handle it now, cleanly. That argument appears to have convinced Charles that action could no longer be postponed.
The human cost, what nobody wants to admit. Here is what is overlooked in all the strategic analysis, the polling data, the constitutional debates, and the media frenzy. This is a family being torn apart. Whatever your opinion about who is right or wrong, whoever you blame, however you analyze the situation, at the heart of this is a father and son who loved each other and now barely exchange words. A grandfather who may never establish a relationship with his grandchildren. Two brothers who once shared everything and now share only bitterness. A family gathering for Christmas where one son will be absent and everyone will pretend his empty seat is normal. King Charles is 77 years old. He has battled cancer. He waited his entire life to be king, and now his reign is partly defined by his estrangement from his younger son. That is not a strategic victory. That is a tragedy. Harry, despite all his privilege and wealth, is raising children who barely know their British family. He has built a life in California, but by most accounts, he is not entirely at peace with it. Friends describe him as homesick for a home that no longer exists. And Meghan, she is in an impossible position, blamed by many for the rift, celebrated by others for her courage, but ultimately just a woman who fell in love with a prince and found the fairy tale was a nightmare. Their children, Archie and Lilibet, are growing up knowing their grandfather is King of England, but never seeing him. They possess titles, prince and princess, granted by Charles, but no relationship with the institution those titles represent. What kind of psychological complexity does that create for children? These are the questions nobody wants to ask because they are uncomfortable and do not fit neatly into Team Harry or Team Palace narratives. But they are the questions that matter most. The palace strategy, silence as power. Let us return to King Charles's master strategy, because what he has achieved here is genuinely remarkable from a communications perspective. By refusing to issue a formal statement, by letting actions speak instead of words, Charles has avoided giving Harry and Meghan any concrete statements to weaponize, kept plausible deniability by labeling website changes as mere administrative updates, let the media fill the vacuum and generate headlines like "King takes quiet action against Sussex drama," demonstrated royal authority through decisive, unannounced moves, protected his health amid cancer treatment at 77. One communications expert told The Guardian, "This is master-class royal strategy." Charles learned from his mother that the crown's power comes not from what it says, but from what it does not need to say. Queen Camilla's influence is evident here too. She survived decades of media warfare and learned that sometimes the best response is no response. Let others rage while you remain serene. But there is a danger in this approach too. Silence can be interpreted as coldness, and in the court of public opinion, especially among younger generations, a father who will not speak to his son can appear less like a dignified monarch and more like a heartless parent. The future. 3 possible scenarios. So, where does this narrative proceed from here? Based on discussions with palace insiders, royal experts, and those close to the Sussex camp, 3 scenarios appear most likely. Scenario 1, permanent rift, 45%. Harry and Meghan never reconcile. They remain in California as independent celebrities. Charles and Harry never speak again. William becomes king with his brother a distant footnote, and Archie and Lilibet grow up fully American, transforming the Sussex saga into a cautionary tale of leaving the firm. Scenario 2, slow reconciliation, 35%. Years pass, emotions subside, and near the end of Charles's life, he reaches out. Harry, now a father, accepts a tentative peace. William remains aloof, and the couple returns from major events, funerals, weddings, coronations, but never resumes royal duties, keeping the relationship cordial yet distant. Scenario 3, shock reconciliation, 20%. A dramatic event, Charles's health crashes, a crisis involving William's child, or the collapse of Harry and Meghan's California life forces swift behind-the-scenes talks. Harry issues a public apology. Charles and William agree to forgive but not forget, and the Sussexes resume limited UK involvement, though not as working royals, sparking a massive media frenzy. The question only you can answer. I have provided you with the facts, the timeline, the strategy, and the speculation. But now I want to hear from you, because this story is not just about royals in palaces or celebrities in California. It is about family, about forgiveness, about whether some rifts are too deep to heal. Here is what I want to know. If you were King Charles, what would you have done? Would you have removed Harry's titles completely, formally and publicly, making the break clean and definitive? Would you have kept trying to reconcile, offering olive branch after olive branch, even as the attacks continued? Or would you have done exactly what Charles did? Quietly and strategically diminish their royal standing without formal dramatics. And if you were Harry, what would you do now? Would you fight back, book that tell-all interview, and defend your truth, even if it means permanent exile? Would you swallow your pride, apologize for the hurt you have caused, and try to rebuild bridges? Or would you do what they are doing? Stay silent, focus on your California life, and let time determine what comes next. Please share your thoughts in the comments, and I mean genuinely share what you think, not what you believe you are expected to think, not the party line from either team. What does your intuition tell you? Because here is the truth. There are no perfect answers here. Every choice has a cost. Every path leaves someone wounded. And perhaps that is the true lesson of this entire saga.
The silence speaks. As I speak, it has been a couple of months since those website changes appeared, and 3 weeks since the Festival of Remembrance, where duty triumphed over noise. In London, King Charles continues his duties, steady, quiet, determined. His health is slowly improving, and his reign is defined not by drama, but by dignified endurance. In California, Harry and Meghan continue building their life, their children growing, their projects moving forward, their royal past becoming increasingly distant. And between those two worlds, silence. No statements, no reconciliations, no dramatic reveals. Just the vast, empty space where a family relationship used to exist. Queen Elizabeth once stated, "Grief is the price we pay for love." Perhaps estrangement is the price we pay for choosing ourselves over expectations, for choosing truth over tradition, for choosing independence over institution. Or perhaps it is simply the price of pride on both sides being more potent than the bond of blood. I do not have the answer. I am not sure anyone does. What I do know is this. Somewhere in London, a king sits in his study late at night, looking at photographs of his sons as boys, and wonders if he made the right choice. And somewhere in California, a prince walks his garden at dawn, looking at the life he has constructed, and wonders if the cost was worth the freedom. Both might be right. Both might be wrong. And that is the tragedy of it all. The titles may be absent from the website. The doors may be closed. The silence may reign. But the questions about duty and family, about freedom and responsibility, about what we owe those who raised us and what we owe ourselves, those questions remain, and they do not have simple answers. Thank you for staying with me through this journey. If this story moved you, challenged you, or made you think, please share it. Let us start a conversation that goes beyond taking sides and gets to the core of what family truly means. And remember, whether you are Team Palace or Team Sussex, whether you believe in duty over noise or truth over tradition, we are all just trying to figure out how to love the people who hurt us and forgive the people we love. That is not a royal problem, that is a human one. And perhaps understanding that is the initial step toward compassion for everyone caught in this impossible situation. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and remember, even crowns cannot protect hearts from breaking.